Hey witches, I'm Aubrey,
And I'm Peyton.
and today we are giving our favorite Halloween book recommendations.
Yes, so drink us a cup of coffee as we dive between these paper sheets. Let's do this. Alrighty, hey everybody, welcome to this
Hey.
week's spooky episode. We are so
Ooh.
excited to give you all of the spooky book recs. Unfortunately, if you're looking for that true crime mystery thriller, we are fantasy readers at heart. Please watch the episode. We have great recs coming your way. But I think if you're looking for like scary books,
Yeah.
I mean, we have scary to us books.
We have the more like Vampire Diaries, CW kind of October Halloween book recs.
Freeform 30 days of Halloween fun. ABC family. Listen, we are whimsical fairies that just
Yeah.
love fantasy worlds. But we have got some really great book recs for you. The most important thing to mention right now is that this is it's a whole NS episode. That means no spoilers. No spoilers are coming your way. These are just book recs to kind of introduce you to these stories the best we can, and try to get you to read them.
So starting off, we have what was our Halloween book episode last year, if you want a full review. But we have Olivia Blake's One for My Enemy.
Yes,
She's
guys.
so pretty.
This book was great. Loved
Yeah.
it. I think she wrote this a long time ago, but she republished it, and I went to a our local bookshop was having like a author speaker series,
Yeah.
and that's how I found myself with a signed edition of it. I never took
Ooh.
off the
The
little
sticker.
the sticker on it. But if you don't know about Olivia Blake, she is like the fantasy writer if you want to be in like that dark academia, like
Witchy.
prosy, witchy,
Yes.
and why I love Tor and
Mm-hmm.
why I love Olivia Blake is in every single one of her books, she is committed to hiring local artists to illustrate in the inside of her book. The first thing I tell anyone, my mom was in here the other day, and I was like, "You need to look at this book."
Yes.
She wrote the Atlas 6.
Yes. So you probably heard of that.
Yeah.
First, One for My Enemy is a Romeo and Juliet retelling
Yes.
set in New York with Russian folklore inspirations tied into it. And y'all, this is what I really like about Olivia Blake is that she will commit to the bit. And
Always.
so, most like Romeo and Juliet retellings, there's endless amounts of them. This is told almost in like playwright fashion, where instead of chapters, you have scenes and you have acts instead of parts. Like she's committing into that structure.
Oh, yes. Yep. And I was scared, because sometimes her work can be overly prosy to the point of, oh yes, there it is. We have our acts.
Yes.
Sometimes it can be overly prosy to the point that I get bored or
Yeah.
uninterested
Mm-hmm.
or disinterested, and I just zone out. But she's able to keep the like romance of like Shakespearean writing,
Yeah.
but with a very present day like
Mm-hmm.
tonal promise. It mixed very well, and
Yeah.
it was a really great story. And you just get those like the women witch clan and the man witch clan and the like destined lovers, and you have the tragic love story, and the ending's really weird.
Yes. It's a little confusing, but like you just have to sit with it.
Yeah.
I listened to this one and I actually really enjoyed that in a way that I didn't think I would be because I thought that the pretentious and like thick language might be hard to like listen to and consume, but I think it actually helped like keep the pacing up whereas if I was reading it, I would have like slowed down with all of
Yeah.
like the big words and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, this is such a vibey book to be reading, like, in a coffee shop in
Yes.
October.
I
Oh my god,
know.
yes. Put me on a park bench with some brown leaves stat with this book.
Yes, and, like, a nice big sweater or flannel.
Yes.
Yeah, no, like, this book changed my perspective on, like, witch stories, and
Mhm.
it made it really easy for me. We actually last year we read this, and we were going to a book-themed Halloween party,
Yeah.
and I had no costume prepared, and I read that, I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go as a witch," and it
Which
worked out, it was really cute, and so
yeah.
now I'm like, now I just wanna be a witch every Halloween because I, like, love that look,
Honestly.
and just, like, these are, like, cool, sexy witches,
Mhm.
love it. And just wrapping in the Romeo and Juliet story with it too is just, like, I don't know, you understand where it's gonna go, you just don't know
Mhm.
what twist she's gonna take with it.
Yeah, and you kinda can't tell who is supposed to be Romeo and who's supposed to be Juliet. And I won't say anything further, but I think there's layers to it that make it a little bit deeper. Also, while romanticies didn't exactly exist as like a genre convention at the time of publishing this, it is a romantasy. Like I would say 50% of this book is romance, 50% is that like witchy fantasy
Yeah.
Shakespearean setting. And so I think that this is one of like the best best written, but like almost overly like thick written romantasies. But I know a lot of people want to experience romantasies, but they're like, I can't do the actor. I can't do the fourth wing
This isn't
girlies.
a
Like
series.
that's not
Ooh.
yet. It's a standalone. I think we only have one series on here, which is my bad, but I had to throw it in. So maybe try one for my enemy out.
Yeah, definitely. Highly, highly recommend. Alright, moving on for our
Yes.
not spookier, but our mystery girls.
Ooh.
We have some great book recs coming at ya. I discovered Riley Sager the beginning of this year, I think, or last
Yeah, it
year. I
was
forget
I
which,
don't know.
but recently, in the past
Very
year.
recently. Within the year, I'd say. Maybe not the
Yes.
calendar year, but I'd say within the, like,
Yeah, exactly.
sun rotation year.
In the sun rotation, in the last 365 days, I
12 moons ago.
discovered Riley Sager. And this is your conventional mystery thriller,
Yeah.
but like writing style. But
Mhm.
girls, girls, like, oh my god, this Riley Sager is a man. Riley Sager is not his name, but he did the whole I'm gonna be like, am I a woman? Am I a man? I love when authors do that. And so I roped Aubrey into reading some Riley Sager.
I thought
My
he was a woman. I just wanna say that going in, and then I was like, this feels like a man," and, like, not in a
Yeah.
bad man way, like, we never recommend a bad man on this podcast, but I was like, "Wait a minute, wait a damn minute, let me go to
Yeah,
this author page on the back."
and there's been multiple times on this podcast that I have bitched about uh men writing female characters. The
Yes.
only time and why that book is not on the screen right now is House Across the Lake I read this past summer, and I will say,
Mhm.
Riley, there were some moments where I was like, "Oh,
Riley.
cause she's a girl, that's why she's doing that," but the only one left is my favorite Riley Sager book. I have to recommend this. First of all, the cover is so freaking cool. It's like this old manor house, and there's like a murder years ago, and there's this nurse, and
Ooh.
she moves in to take care of Lenora Hope. And Lenora Hope's in a wheelchair and can't talk and has to use a typewriter to speak. And
Mm.
this mystery of how this family all died except for Lenora Hope needs to be solved, and not solved, but it's been like everyone talks
Uncovered.
around town about it. And so this caretaker, she moves in, our main character, I forget her name. I think it's Kit. Yep, Kit. I was right.
Look at that.
Kit moves in and starts taking care of her, and things start happening. And all I gotta say
Mm.
is the last quarter of this book you will not put down. We've
Ooh.
joked about this also a lot on the podcast. I created a plot chart because I was so obsessed with this book, and I was
Yes.
like that meme of that guy with like the pins. I was like, this happened, and so this must happen, and then so I think this is the person, and like this person maybe is not dead, and like at the end you're like, oh my god, is this person? Oh my god, it's all connected, and that's the thing about a Riley Sager story. It all connects somehow. You just have to wait to find out. So,
Yes.
the only one left, yes, if you want literally the way that this book cover looks is kind of how the story goes.
Stunning.
It's like a house on a cliff. and this, like,
Oh,
northeastern spooky like, this is such a Halloween book. You must read it if you haven't.
yeah.
But we just read this past summer, Middle of the Night, which is his
Middle of the
newest
night.
release.
Yes, and this one I'd say is less of, like, I don't wanna say, like, spooky mystery, but it's more so sits in that eerie, something is watching me setting,
Yeah.
where, like, you always felt like you had to, like, look behind your back. Actually, while I was, reading this, I was listening to it while working one day,
Oh.
and I was, like, getting all creeped out, and I was in the mood, and then I hear my front door open.
Oh, yeah, that's right, that's right.
The scream that left my mouth, I terrified the poor maintenance man, which, I mean, I don't know, he came into my house without knocking, so you know what? Fuck him, but also, this book had me so creeped out that, like, when a man entered my house, I lost my shit. Um This follows our main character who has returned back to the home, his childhood home, where one night when he was a little boy camping in his backyard with his best friend, Billy, Billy went missing. And nobody ever knew what happened to him. And he thinks that Billy's like now haunting him as an adult. And there's like really weird, like it's like almost suburbia.
Yeah, it's, like,
Yeah.
set in, like, a suburban cul-de-sac, and things keep
Yes.
happening only him and Billy would know.
Mhm. And I think that's what kind of makes it so eerie is that it's not a house on a cliff. It's not a fantasy story in New York. This is some real life shit.
Yes,
He's just
very
in a
possible.
neighborhood. Like I camped in my backyard as a kid. And so that like it hits so close to home that it's just like turning like the natural unnatural.
Well, that's so true because, like, this is unnatural. This is,
Mhm.
like, more like this feels like fiction. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a caretaker at a mansion where this horrible murder happened years
Uh-huh.
ago, like, 50 years ago, and, like, that's crazy. But that is just a man moving back to his childhood home and now getting
Yep.
haunted by a ghost.
Uh-huh.
Which feels so relatable and so real, and it spooked me out to the fact that, like, that this was Aubrey's first Riley Sager book, and I was like,
Mhm.
"I don't know if you're gonna like this, like, this is creeping me out, like, don't read it at night." I was like, because the only one left is just, like the only one left kinda reminds me of, like, The Shining in a way, like,
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick, just, like, outlandish sometimes, where you're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, this is, like we're in this world, like, this world's not even on the like, in the on Earth." Like, it feels a little bit
Yeah.
different, whereas, yeah, Middle of the Night, you're like, "Okay, Riley, like,
It hits too close to home.
you hitting a little too close to home." But yeah, guys, Riley Sager, I can't say enough great things about this man, and I don't
Yeah.
read a lot of male authors, he's
And we
great.
don't read a lot of, like, mystery. I think it sits, like I don't think it's fully a thriller, but, like, you know, that kind of space, we're not often there, so I think it's good for people transitioning in. Like, I know
Yes.
we have some book club girlies who would probably be like, "Riley Sager's, like, your thriller pick?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is."
Yes.
Like, we're reading a thriller right now for book club. It's called Kill for Me, Kill for You. And that shit's so intense. And it's like, even the girlies are being like, I read thrillers a lot, and this one's a little graphic. So
Yeah, like,
it's intense. I mean,
it
maybe
is
a Halloween pick,
intense.
but we haven't finished it.
Yeah, I know, I was thinking that, I was like, we probably could maybe recommend the book club pick, but honestly, like, at this point where I'm at and I'm a little behind on the reading, I couldn't really recommend it at this point,
Oh,
so
you gotta catch up because it fucking goes crazy. Like,
okay.
what I thought was gonna be the third act happened in like the second like fourth of this book. So wild. Anyways, let's move forward. I think a perfect Halloween pick is this new book that I haven't finished this one either, but I am really, really far into it. And so I feel confident recommending this is Immortal Dark by Tigist Gurma. I this was actually when we did our Goodreads fall TBR video and we were just reacting to what new releases were coming out, I saw this on there, and it's, like,
Oh, I was
sprayed
about to say,
edges.
I see no soul can enter without an invitation.
Yeah, it's so spooky. This is a black vampire book, so it is set in this, like, vampire human almost academy, like, there's a school, but it's also just, like, where all of, like, the vampires and humans live, and basically, in this world, vampires can only drink blood from certain, like, families, and so those families all have their own little, like, haunted mansion that circle the property of this, like, academia Gothic setting, and then each house has its own, like, power, and each house can be set to a certain role, and then the main character, Keaton, is coming in because she thinks that her sister's missing, and she thinks that someone within the academy has, like, taken her sister, killed her sister, and she thinks it's the vampire living in her family's house. So she was taken
Ah.
away, she was kidnapped away from this, like, vampire society as a kid. But it's so wild. I feel like I'm not even doing justice describing this book.
You're doing great. It sounds, like, really cool.
And now I love unlikable female main characters. And so I know some people don't. Like, I saw someone being like, "I didn't like this book because she was just so hell-bent on, like, her mission to get her sister back." I was like, yeah."
It's a
But
book.
I will say, she did kill someone. Like, it starts the book, and she's, like, in, like, this, like she's in her apartment, like, going out of her mind crazy because she just committed a murder trying
Yeah.
to solve this, and there's, like, these almost it feels Catholic to me as someone who's not Catholic because there's this very strong imagery of, like, eradicating all evil, seeking absolution, like, those themes that you see a lot in, like, religious horror is kind of
Yeah.
coming into this, which is it's also just vampire,
Which
but
makes
that's how
sense
it
for vampires. They're, like, uber cat like, that's just, like, yeah.
enriched with, like, Ethiopian history, and it's super, super cool. The only thing I will say is that the main vampire, that she talks to is supposed to look like a man in his early 20s, and I was accidentally picturing him as a man in his late 30s the entire time, and it makes the book creepier.
Oh, okay.
But I
'Cause you're
think
like,
it's
"Ugh."
supposed to be. I mean, I'm not at the end or anything yet, but I think it's supposed to be this, like, she hates him, but they, like, kinda also wanna fuck situation, and I was not picking up on those vibes because I thought he was, like, 30.
Okay, you're like,
But
yeah.
he's just, like, 100 and, like, he's just, like, 500 years old
It's like
vampire.
Edward and Bella, it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah. But I accidentally was not picturing him the correct age, but this book is really, really good, guys. I'm so excited to finish it. I have, like, 100 or, like, 150 pages left. Um,
It sounds really good and the
it
best
is.
October read.
Yes.
Seriously. Okay. So, our next recommendation,
Yes.
actually, Aubrey has for me because I am letting her borrow it. It's Mexican Gothic.
I've had this from you for, like, years now. It's on my list to read. Like, I'm getting through my
I
physicals
don't
that I
need
have borrowed.
I don't need it. I really don't. I actually ended up reading that on my Kindle of all things just because I was traveling that month. I read this book in the summertime, which is really interesting, but
Yeah.
the if you open up the front cover
Yes.
into the front
Oh, yes, I remember this.
this is what the book is like, okay? It's very different from the front cover. This is it, okay? We're I'm sticking with the whole mansion idea here. Kind of like I'm bringing back in the only one left. I must have a type. Okay, so this story follows this woman that hasn't heard from her sister in a really long time, but her sister went and moved and married into this very affluent family. This
Mm.
story takes place, I think, near like Mexico City,
Okay.
maybe also Cuba. I'm sorry, I forget. But it has a
Feels like
lot of like
Mexican Gothic.
Latin influence,
Yeah.
and so it takes place in the 1950s, and our main character decides, I need to go and see my sister. Like, I haven't seen her in forever. I haven't heard from her. I need to go find her. So she goes and visits her, basically on this castle on this hill. And from what I remember, the family is very white.
Mhm.
They're a very white family,
Mm.
and like they had slaves back in the day, all of
Ew,
that.
yikes.
Yep.
It said Mexican City. I don't
Mexico
know,
City.
like
Yeah,
yeah.
Mexico City. Yeah, that's what I
It
figured.
might be best to bring her to Mexico City.
Yep.
So maybe she was in Cuba
She
or something?
no, I think they lived in Mexico City, but then her sister moved with this family to, like, the
Oh.
countryside in
Yeah, yeah,
Mexico.
yeah, yeah. Of course,
And
because what's spookier than a
yeah,
countryside where you're all alone?
right. So basically the way that this book goes is it's one big mystery that our main character is trying to solve, but the
Mhm.
longer she's in this house, the crazier things happen, and she starts going crazy. And her sister
Ooh.
has lost her fucking marbles, and the husband's
Mhm.
like, "She's just really sick. She's been sick for a while." And then you start wondering, maybe it's the house. And it gets crazy. This book
Yeah.
turned at the end, I was like, "What is happening?"
That's amazing,
So
though.
it's like a paranormal fantasy
Yeah.
situation mystery. It's not really like a thriller, but
Mhm.
it's crazy. But I really like the time period aesthetic that we're in.
Yeah.
Um and sort of that feeling of like when you think you're safe, like at your sister's house, and it turns out that you haven't been safe this whole time and they're gonna get you next, like you're next. And so you get that anxiety when you're reading it of like, oh shit, like she needs to get out of
Yeah.
this house. Like, how is she gonna get out of this house? But there's fog and no one can leave, and it's like crazy.
That's really cool. It's also I just checked, only 301 pages, like,
It's a quick read.
so, like, that's a short, small read. The text is pretty big too, so that's a nice, like, you need to get out of a reading slump. Just
Yes,
sit down, like,
very
maybe
like
one day.
it's in the name. She took very traditional Gothic stories and
Yeah.
incorporated it in with this it's literally called Mexican Gothic. Why didn't I'm so fucking stupid. Of course, it takes place in Mexico. Sorry, everyone.
That's what I
Um,
was like, "Oh, but maybe, like, that's the twist."
yeah, I know. No, I'm
No.
so stupid. But she takes the like Mexican culture and then that
Mhm.
traditional like Transylvanian like Gothic feeling and like
Ooh,
fucking
yeah, yeah,
shoves them in
yeah.
a room together, and then they just make she makes them work. It makes it work, and so it's a good book. It wasn't my favorite. I have to tell you, read Riley Sager maybe before that, but if you want the vibes of the 1950s Gothic
Yeah.
Mexican
Mhm.
culture, like yes, absolutely great story.
Stunning. Nice. Alright, next we have a book that Peyton and I do not own because we both read it on our Kindles, I'm pretty sure, and it is a newish release. We did a review on this one as well, and it is Bride by Ali Hazelwood.
Guys, this book is so good. It's your typical vampires versus werewolf sort of
Yeah.
setup. Our main character's name is Misery, whether you like that or not. That is her first name, and she basically gets married off
Mhm.
to the leader of the werewolf like pack.
Yes.
But
But she's a
traditionally,
vampire.
yeah, like, literally the first chapter is them getting married,
Yes.
and, she's a vampire, and she's, like, the daughter of the leader of the vampires,
Mhm.
and so, like, totally didn't want this, but the last time a vampire and a werewolf got married, it was carnage, like, it was
Yeah.
mayhem, and the vampires and werewolves hate each other, but
Mhm.
the interesting thing about this story is that it's set in a human world.
Yeah.
So they're humans. Like they're actually just
Mhm.
normal ass people walking around too. So Misery gets shipped off to Werewolf Land, and
Yes.
as if anyone reads Allie Hazelwood, she's really big at incorporating women in STEM into her books. So Misery's like computer coder and like can hack into shit and all of
Yeah.
that. So it's a paranormal romance.
Yes. It kind of feels like going back to, like, your roots of,
Yeah.
Peyton was talking about being a witch for Halloween, like, everyone was a witch, like, when they were little kids and stuff. This is, like, the vampire werewolf that you missed,
But with the adult lens of,
but
like,
with the
let's have a
adult
lot of
lens.
sex.
Oh, she's also trying to solve, like, a mystery because her friend's missing too, like, all of these Halloween books, it's like someone's missing.
Yeah,
Um
someone is missing, and she's trying to find them. Um,
Um, this
yeah,
was Ali Hazelwood's first step into the fantasy sphere, and I think she did a really good job for
I
someone
think so
who's
too.
like, this isn't their genre. Obviously, she's stuck with like the more paranormal than the like she wasn't writing fae shit. But I think it was done really well. I will say I hated the beginning of this book. I had to, like, put in like, I had to remind myself when I reached, like, the, like, 35 or 40% mark, I was like, "I don't care how good this book gets, like, it can't get higher than 4 stars." And then I'd get to, like, the 50% mark, and I'd be like, "It can't get higher than, like, 3.5 stars," because of, like, how much I wasn't enjoying getting into this, and I think that was just adjusting to her style because I don't
Yeah.
typically like a lot of contemporary romances, and
Right.
while it is a paranormal setting, it still has those, like, contemporary romance, like, beats and prose and such. But I think at the end it was worth it, and there is technically like another book set in the same universe coming out, that I think we'll read.
Yeah, I like genuinely like it was a good book. I
Mhm.
enjoyed it, and yeah, like Aubrey said, it's kind of like you got what we loved as kids,
Yeah,
but like now
but with
it's very
nodding.
with nodding. Yes,
Google it.
you can
Oh, did
Google
I
that.
ever tell you? Okay, so if you guys don't know what nodding is, it is, well, it's a sex thing, okay?
Yeah.
And we were talking of on the review episode, I was making jokes. I was like, "I don't know how, like, this is supposed to look. I don't know how this is supposed to work." And I was like, "DM me
And I was like,
pictures and
"Do not
stuff."
DM me."
I never thought twice of that again, and no one sent me any inappropriate dick pics, but someone did. I did it just got, like, lost in my, like, "You don't know this person," like, Instagram folder, but someone did message me trying to explain, like, what it would look like, and so shout out to whoever that was because I saw it, like, months later, and so I don't even think I responded because I was so embarrassed. I was like, "I asked for this, and then I forgot to look for it."
Aw,
But someone
thanks,
was
guys.
kindly explaining nodding to me.
Yes, thanks everyone for explaining nodding to Aubrey, whoever that was. That was very kind of you to go and search for her and tell her. Yeah, it's just what happens when dogs have sex. So, yeah.
Take
Um,
that as you will,
take that
and
as you
apply
will.
it as necessary.
Yeah. Hello,
That's
family
another
watching this.
romantasy. So we have 2 romantasies, we have some thriller-esque, we have some mostly mysteries on this list, and next we have
A very traditional mystery. I read
ooh, okay.
this book actually when I was getting back into reading.
Ooh,
It's been
that's so
a very
fun.
long time, so as I hold this up, I'm gonna reference the back. But I really enjoyed this because it's called Pretty as a Picture by Elizabeth Little. I'm gonna try my best, but I may peek on the back. I just wanted to know Marissa, that's her name. Okay. Um, Long story short, it's actually a movie editor. So like an editor that spends
Mm.
that's her job is to edit movies. She gets
Mhm.
called off the coast of Delaware to this
Local.
island vacation town that had a very big mystery back in the day. And they decided Hollywood
Mm.
was like, "You know what? Let's make a movie out of that. Let's make this horror thing that happened here, this mystery into a
Mhm.
movie." And so Marissa goes and she's on set. She's living in this town. She's going to while may I add, of course, she's going through this horrible breakup.
Of course.
You know,
Yeah.
LA sucks, but now she's on the East Coast. And as she's editing this movie, she is finding out things that people have never seen before. And through
Ooh.
that, she is solving the mystery because the mystery never got solved. Like the
Of
crime
course.
never, it was like
Yeah.
it was a cold case. Um, so, like the whole book, honestly, like it says back here, she'll spend her days in the editing room doing what she does best, turning pictures into stories. Um,
Oh.
but on set, she discovers that the killer may still be on the loose and he may not be finished because now that they're filming this movie, this killer's like, wait,
Wait a minute.
I'm
Let me
back.
get my check.
Exactly. Yeah, so this is an incredibly spooky read, and I think it's great if you want I don't know, like, we're like, Aubrey and I, we went to school and
Yeah.
we were editor like, that's just,
I was
like
gonna say that's so perfect for you. I mean, for,
yeah,
us, but I
for
haven't read
us,
it.
like,
For
it's
you.
just, like, in the same career field that
Mhm.
we're in, and so they would talk about traditional movie set things, and it was exciting to kinda be like, "Oh, a career field within like, a horror story," like, I don't know, it was
Ooh,
great, so,
mhm.
highly recommend.
That's very cute. Okay.
We're on to our last one.
Last one is what has become, I think one of my favorite books, which is wild because I have not finished. This is the series. It is the Shepherd King duology. You guys have definitely heard of it already. One Dark Window. It was taking Book Talk and the world by storm like months ago. I found a screenshot on my phone like of someone like holding up the book that I had taken in like January, and I didn't read it until like a month and a half ago. Okay, which is a crying shame because I loved this story and I don't have a physical because I ordered the very special, very sexy, pretty Barnes& and Noble exclusive copies and they don't come out until the end of October.
Yeah.
One Dark Window is a gothic fantasy following our main character Elsbeth, which is like very like gothic-y, and it feels like a fairy tale retelling, and it is, but it's not a fairy tale that you likely know, but it does have elements of like what's the Little Red Riding Hood. It has elements of Little Red Riding Hood. It has elements of like almost Cinderella, and you're not entirely sure what story it's taking. I did realize at the end that if you do know the main folklore story that it's taking inspiration from, it kind of spoils the end. So I'm not gonna say it just because I was like, oh well, like if you knew that whole story, you would
Yeah.
understand how the book's gonna end. But anyways, it has a super unique magic system. So basically, in this world, there are 12 different types of tarot cards, and I think it's like 52 in the whole deck or whatever a normal deck of cards is. And each type of the card has different powers associated with it. So there's like the maiden card, and what that card does is if a person is using it, they will become like super beautiful and gorgeous. And that's the plus. But the minus for using it is that they start becoming like callous and mean. And so every card has one of these like positives and one of these negatives. And Elsbeth, the main character, kind of gets put on this quest to try to collect one of each card to stop. There's this like magical like
Fog.
rotting or curse.
Mist. Oh, there's like the mist.
The miss, yes. There's
Yeah.
something happening. So basically, the magic through these tarot cards is like considered good magic in the kingdom. But if someone is born with natural magic, it's considered really bad. And those people are just like killed because it's considered a weakness. Well, of course, our main girly has natural magic. And so she had to be hidden away as a child. But the way her natural magic operates is she has a monster, a nightmare in her head. And it's this like beast, which feels like Little Red Riding Hood. It felt like the wolf, but instead it was like in her mind, and it talks to her in like riddles and stuff, and it's got such like a cool gothic vibe to it. I really really enjoyed it. I really liked the prose as well. I feel like it had similar to like Holly Black, where it's like that like crisp cutting prose to it. It's really good. There's a twist at the end, and
It's dramatic.
it's dramatic, and I'm itching to read book 2, but I'm hoping that Peyton will read it so that way
Yes. I am like
maybe.
20% through right now.
Yes.
So,
So hopefully we'll have a review up
yeah, well,
soon for
we
book
will.
1.
We'll have a
But
review soon.
I wanna be able to talk theories and stuff, so I haven't read book 2 yet.
So, yes, I am almost done with that. Well, I'm working through it, and we'll have
You'll
a
get to a
review out
point where
soon.
you'll be like, "This is so good," and then you're,
Yeah,
like, not gonna wanna put it down.
yeah, and any fantasy book, just getting through the world building, you're like, who are you again?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, and the main character, like, the love interest, his name is Raven, but with a Y. And I've seen some people hate it, but I was like, "I don't mind it." Like, that's kinda, like it's very
It's
gothic.
fantasy. Yeah, it's like a
Yes, and
gothic
this is
fantasy, it's supposed
written
to
by
be.
Rachel Gilling, and she has a new book coming out soon. No, I don't wanna say soon, but, the cover reveal comes out soon.
There we go.
So
Alrighty. Well, with that being said,
yes.
thank you for joining us for this rec episode. We love giving recs.
Halloween, yes.
So we just need to read books in the meantime to have recs for you. But even though we're not real mystery thriller spooky girls,
Mhm.
hopefully we have a little bit of everything on this list for whatever type of reader
Yeah.
you are. So with that being said, please drop your Halloween spooky recs down below so I can add them to my ever growing TBR list.
Yes.
And also maybe you'll find some friends in the comments that will agree with you or maybe disagree with you, and that's okay too. And as always, please like and subscribe. It helps us out
Yes, yes,
more than
yes.
you could ever know.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us and happy reading.